The null shard was the quietest place in the entire galaxy. It was a massive region of space, marked on every star map as a forbidden zone. The galactic hegemony had rules about this place. Rule number 1 was, do not go in. Rule number 2 was, if you see something go in, do not wait for it to come out. The space here was broken. It twisted metal, stopped computers from working, and made living beings very sick. It was a graveyard of ancient stars and lost ships. Vex sat in the high tower of the hegemony listening station. The station floated just outside the edge of the danger zone. Vex was a sensor operator. His job was very boring. He watched screens that showed empty, black space for 12 hours a day. He had 2 sets of eyes and green skin, and right now, both pairs of eyes were drooping. He was drinking a warm, blue liquid that tasted like dust. Nothing ever happened here. That was the point. If something happened, it was usually bad. Vex looked at the main screen. He blinked his eyes. He rubbed them with his long, thin fingers. There was a small red light blinking in the middle of the gray area of the null shard. Computer, Vex said aloud. Is there a mistake with the screen? The machine hummed. No error detected, the computer replied in a flat voice. Vex leaned closer. The red light was moving. It was moving slowly. It was deep inside the forbidden area. Vex felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Physics did not work the same way inside the shard. Any ship made of normal metal should have been crushed by the gravity waves or dissolved by the radiation within seconds. Yet, this dot was still there. It was not just floating, it was flying. Vex pressed a red button on his console. This connected him to the commander. A few seconds later, the face of Commander Kale appeared on the small screen. Kale looked strict and serious. He wore a silver uniform with many medals. What is it? Vex Kale asked. This better be important. I am in a meeting. Sir, I am seeing something on the radar, Vex said, his voice shaking a little. It is inside the null shard. Object is moving. Kale frowned. That is impossible, Vex. Maybe it is just a rock or a piece of old debris. I thought so too, sir, Vex explained. But rocks do not move in a straight line like this. And it is big. It is the size of a heavy cruiser. It has been there for 10 minutes, and it is not breaking apart. Kale's face went pale. Send a probe drone immediately. I need to see what this is. Vex typed fast on his keyboard. A small, fast drone launched from the station. It flew towards the edge of the forbidden zone and then crossed the invisible border. The video feed turned fuzzy with static, but it kept working. The drone zoomed in on the strange object. On the main screen in the command center, the image cleared up. The officers in the room gasped. It was a ship, but it looked like nothing they had ever seen. It was not sleek and shiny like hegemony ships, it was blocky, heavy, and gray. It looked like a flying fortress made of stone and iron. The hull was covered in scratches, burn marks, and patches of different colored metal. It looked old and beaten up, but it was moving with power. It is primitive, Kale whispered. Look at the design. It uses chemical thrusters, that is technology from 1,000 years ago. But it is surviving, sir, another officer said. Look at the energy readings. Vex looked at the data graph. The null shard sent out waves of destructive energy. Most ships needed heavy shields to block it. This ship was not blocking the energy. It was absorbing it. The radiation was hitting the hull and flowing into the ship like water into a sponge. What is it? Kale asked, looking scared. Scan the database. Does this design match any known race? The computer searched for a few seconds. A chime rang out. Match found, the computer said. Designation, human. Bulwark-class cruiser. Probability of match, 99%. Human, Kale shouted. Those primitive apes from the small blue planet, they barely learned to fly to their own moon last time we checked. How did they get a ship into the null shard, and how is it still flying? No data, sir, Vex said. He watched the screen with fear. The ship is heading towards the exit. It is not slowing down. Meanwhile, inside the strange ship, things were very quiet. The ship was called the Aegis. Inside, the air was warm and smelled like coffee and old paper. The gravity felt normal, unlike the crazy gravity outside. The walls were covered in thick metal plates. Wires hung from the ceiling in some places, held together with tape. In the bridge, which was the control room of the ship, Captain Roy sat in a worn-out chair. He was a man with short hair and a tired face. He wore a simple blue shirt with the name Roy stitched on the pocket. He held a white mug that said "Best Dad" on it. He took a sip of the hot coffee and sighed. "Report," Roy said. The ship shook gently. It was a vibration that came from the engines fighting the void outside. "Engine output is stable," said a voice from the speaker. It was Jay, the engineer. "But this outside space is really angry, Captain. The radiation levels are high. Our hull is getting hot." "Can we take it?" Roy asked calmly. He didn't look worried. "Oh, easily," Jay replied. "The energy cores love this stuff. We are actually charging our batteries faster than we can use them. I have never seen anything like it. It's like the ship is drinking the danger." Roy smiled a little. "Good. Keep us steady. I don't want to spill my coffee." "Do you think anyone is watching us?" Jay asked. Roy looked out the main window. Outside, the stars looked wrong. They were stretched into lines of blue and red light. The space around them twisted and turned. "Maybe," Roy said. "But we are in the forbidden zone. Supposedly, nobody comes here. We just need to get through this patch and find a quiet place to make the jump to light speed." "Right," Jay said. "Just another Tuesday for us." The ship, the Aegis, continued to drift through the impossible void. To the aliens watching from the safety of their station, it was a ghost that defied the laws of the universe. To Roy and the crew, it was just a bumpy road on a long trip. They had no idea that the galaxy was watching them with terror and confusion. They just wanted to get where they were going. Captain Roy stood up and walked to the navigation table. He looked at the star charts. They were old and hand-drawn in some places. "Hold on," Roy said to the empty room. "It's going to get a little rough soon." The ship groaned as a massive wave of dark energy hit it, but the shields glowed bright gold for a second and swallowed the wave whole. The ship didn't even slow down. Roy took another sip of his coffee and watched the stars go by. Commander Kale stared at the large screen in the command center. He could not believe his eyes. The human ship was still there. It was floating in the null shard like it was a calm lake on a Sunday. The sensors showed that the radiation levels were deadly, but the ship did not care. Kale felt a headache starting to grow behind his eyes. He turned to Vex, who was sitting at his desk with a look of pure confusion on his face. "We must make contact," Kale said firmly. "We need to order them to leave. They are breaking the laws of the hegemony. They cannot be here." Vex looked nervous. He tapped his long, thin fingers on the metal desk. sir, is that safe? The universal warning code is very powerful. It uses frequencies that can destroy the mind of a biological being. If the humans are biological, it might kill them instantly. Kale nodded slowly. If they are tough enough to survive the null shard, they might be tough enough to survive the warning. Or, maybe they will turn around and run away when they hear it. We have to try. Send the warning. Vex took a deep breath. He typed a long command into his console. A bright signal was sent from the station. It raced across the empty space and hit the Aegis. The signal was a mix of high-pitched sounds and psychic waves. It usually made people fall to the floor in pain. It was the voice of supreme authority. It told the listener that they were small and weak. On the bridge of the Aegis, Officer Mia was eating a sandwich. She was a young woman with dark hair tied back in a ponytail. She was wearing big headphones, but the warning signal was so loud it came right through the plastic. Ow! Mia yelled, pulling the headphones off her ears. What is that noise? Captain Roy looked up from his map. He looked calm. What is going on? I don't know, Mia said, rubbing her ear. Someone is yelling at us on the comms. It sounds like a banshee screaming into a microphone. It's awful. Mia pressed a few buttons to clear the static. She recognized the code. It was a standard galactic hegemony warning. It was meant to be scary. It was supposed to make them surrender. To Mia, it was just annoying. She looked at the message translation on her screen. It says, "Unknown vessel, you are violating the sanctity of the null shard. Exit or be dismantled," Mia read aloud. She rolled her eyes. Can you believe the attitude we are just passing through? Tell them to be quiet, Roy said calmly. We are trying to work. Mia smiled. She did not send a polite text back. She decided to send a message of her own. She queued up a music track from her personal playlist. It was a loud, fast song with heavy guitars and drums. Then she opened the microphone. Hey, aliens, Mia said. Her voice sounded bored, not scared. Yeah, we heard you the first time. Can you keep it down? We are trying to fix the engine manifold, and your screaming is giving us a headache. Turn it down, thanks. She hit the send button. Back at the station, Vex almost fell out of his chair. The speaker system blasted the loud, thumping music. It was chaotic and wild. Then came the woman's voice. She sounded like she was complaining about bad weather, not a threat from the galactic government. Commander Kale's mouth fell open. She is not afraid. The universal warning did not hurt her. No, sir, Vex said, checking the medical readings from the scan. And her heart rate is normal. She is just annoyed. Kale felt his face turn red. He was a high-ranking officer. No one spoke to him like that. This is an insult. They are mocking the hegemony. They are in a forbidden zone, and they are telling us to be quiet. Fire the gravity lance. Teach them a lesson. The gravity lance was a powerful weapon on the station. It focused gravity into a tight beam. When it hit a ship, it made the ship heavy, very heavy. It could crush a steel ship like a soda can. Targeting the Aegis, Vex said, sweating. Firing. A beam of purple light shot out from the station. It traveled fast and hit the human ship dead on. On the Aegis, the ship shook slightly. It felt like a bump in the road. We are hit. Ace shouted from the pilot's seat. Ace was a young man with messy hair. He gripped the steering wheel. That was a gravity beam. They are trying to crush us. Roy looked at the shield monitor. Is it working? No, Jay said over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, you won't believe this. The gravity field is hitting the shields, but the shields are eating it. The energy is pushing right into our cells. We are fully charged now. As if to prove him right, the lights on the bridge suddenly flashed. They had been dimmed to save power. Now, they turned bright white, almost blinding. The hum of the engines grew louder and smoother. The computer screens glowed with intense power. Wow, Ace said, shielding his eyes. I've never seen the batteries this full. We have enough power to fly for 10 years. Roy looked at the main screen. The alien station was still there. Mia, send them a message. Already on it, Captain. Thank you for the recharge, Mia transmitted back to the station. Your aim is a little shaky, though. You missed the important parts. Back at the station, Commander Kale sat down heavily in his chair. He stared at the image of the human ship. It was glowing with bright light. It was not broken. It was not crushed. It looked stronger than before. They absorbed the gravity lance, Kale whispered. They used our weapon as a battery charger. Vex was silent. He looked at the screen with fear. Sir, what kind of creature uses a weapon that kills everyone else to charge their lights? Kale did not have an answer. He realized that these humans were not just lucky. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were dangerous because they did not know what fear was. And now, they were angry. Can we fire again? Kale asked, his voice shaking. I don't think we should, sir, Vex said softly. I think we just made them stronger. The human ship turned slowly in the void. It began to move towards the station, not away from it. The chase was about to begin, but the hunters were no longer sure who was the prey. Commander Kale paced back and forth in his office. He was very worried. The weapon did not work. In fact, it made the human ship stronger. He sat down at his desk and looked at the report. The ship was now glowing with power. He knew he could not let it leave the null shard. He had to stop them. We cannot destroy it with our main guns, Kale said to Vex, who was standing in the doorway. If we shoot again, they will just get more energy. We have to capture the ship. We have to go inside. Vex looked scared. Go inside, but the radiation, and the humans. We have no choice, Kale said. Send the elite squad. They are part robot and part living being. They can survive the environment. Send them to board the ship. Capture the crew and bring them to me. Vex nodded and left the room. A few minutes later, a small, black transport ship left the hegemony station. It flew silently through the dark space toward the Aegis. Inside the transport were 10 elite troopers. They wore heavy armor that covered their whole bodies. Their faces were hidden behind dark visors. They held plasma rifles. They did not feel fear. They only followed orders. The transport ship landed gently on the side of the Aegis. The troopers used magnetic locks to attach themselves to the hull. Then, they used powerful laser cutters to make a hole in the human ship's airlock. With a hiss of air, they pulled the metal door open and jumped inside. They expected to find a highly advanced warship. They expected to see clean hallways, bright lights, and dangerous traps. But what they saw made them stop in confusion. The hallway was dark. The floor was made of metal grating. There were wires hanging from the ceiling, held together with tape. To the left, there was a table with a half-eaten sandwich on it. To the right, there was a pair of magnetic boots stuck to the ceiling for no reason. It did not look like a warship. It looked like a messy garage. It even smelled like burnt toast. The troopers moved slowly. Their sensors scanned every corner. They could hear noises coming from deeper inside the ship. They walked down the hallway, their heavy boots making a loud clanking sound on the floor. At the end of the hallway, there was a large open door leading to the engine room. Inside, standing near a huge glowing engine, was a man. He was wearing dirty coveralls and holding a giant wrench. He was not wearing armor. He was just a human. This was Jay, the engineer. He was humming a song to himself while he tightened a bolt on the engine. He heard the loud clanking of boots behind him. He turned around slowly. He saw the 10 heavily armed troopers pointing their guns at him. Jay did not scream. He did not run away. He just looked annoyed. He put his hands on his hips. "Hey!" Jay shouted over the noise of the engine. "Could you keep it down? I am trying to fix the gravity coil here." The leader of the troopers stepped forward. A robotic voice came from his helmet. "Drop your weapon. You are prisoners of the galactic hegemony. Lay on the floor." Jay looked at the giant wrench in his hand, then back at the troopers. "This I'm working. Also, watch your step. I just mopped there." The leader did not understand. The troopers raised their plasma rifles. "Fire," the leader commanded. 10 bright blue beams of energy shot out of the guns. The beams moved very fast. They should have hit Jay. He was standing right in the open. He had nowhere to hide. But just as the beams reached him, Jay moved. It was not a normal movement. It looked like a glitch in a video. He was standing there 1 second, and then he was suddenly 3 feet to the left. The plasma beams hit the wall behind him, leaving black scorch marks. "What the?" Jay said, looking at the wall. "You scratched the paint." The troopers stopped. Their targeting computers were confused. The computer said the human should be dead. It calculated the speed of the shot and the speed of the human. The math did not make sense. The human had moved faster than his body should allow. But he did not look fast. He just looked like he was not there when the shot arrived. "Hold still," the leader ordered. They fired again. Jay ducked. He did not duck quickly, he ducked as if the bullets were moving in slow motion. He stepped casually behind a large metal pipe. The plasma beams hit the pipe and bounced off, zipping around the room dangerously. "Hey, stop it!" Jay yelled from behind the pipe. "You are going to break something." The troopers moved forward to grab him. One trooper reached out to grab Jay's arm. Jay stepped out from behind the pipe, slipped on the wet floor he had warned them about, fell backward, and somehow managed to slide right between the trooper's legs. As Jay slid on his back, he swung his legs up and kicked the trooper in the back of the knees. The heavy trooper, who weighed 300 pounds, fell over. Jay stood up and brushed the dust off his pants. "I told you it was slippery," Jay said. "You guys are really clumsy." The troopers were getting scared. This was not a battle. It was a disaster. Their computers could not predict what the human would do. The humans moved in a way that ignored the laws of physics. In the null shard, where reality was already bent, the humans seemed to be the only ones who knew how to walk in a straight line. Another trooper tried to hit Jay with the butt of his rifle. Jay simply leaned forward, letting the rifle pass over his head, and then tapped the trooper on the helmet with his wrench. Bonk. "Stop it," Jay said. The trooper stumbled back, dizzy. The helmet rang like a bell. The leader looked at his team. They were confused, dizzy, and missing. The human was not fighting them with martial arts or advanced skills. He was just inconvenient. He acted like gravity and time were just suggestions that he could ignore whenever he wanted. "Retreat," the leader finally said. "We cannot capture them. They do not obey causality." The troopers ran back down the hallway. They stepped on the sandwich on the table as they left. They scrambled back into their transport ship and detached from the Aegis. They flew back to the station as fast as they could. Jay watched them go through the open airlock. He shook his head. "Rude," he said. He went back to his engine and picked up his wrench. People have no respect for other people's workspace. In the station, the troopers reported to Commander Kale. "They are monsters," the leader said, his robotic voice shaking. "We fired at point-blank range. We missed every time. They are not solid. They are ghosts." One of them slipped on water and moved faster than light. Kale sat down, defeated. "They ate our gravity beam. They dodge our plasma. What are these humans?" "They are chaos," Vex said quietly from the back. "They are chaos in a metal box." Kale looked at the screen. The Aegis was still moving, now completely unaffected by the boarding attempt. The ship seemed to laugh at them. Kale realized that he could not fight them with weapons or soldiers. He was running out of options. The null shard began to rumble around them, reacting to the stress. The situation was getting worse. The null shard was not just angry anymore, it was breaking. The space around the station began to twist like a pretzel. Stars that were millions of miles away looked like they were right next to the window. The gravity was fluctuating wildly. On the station, objects were floating up to the ceiling, then crashing down to the floor. In the command center, alarms were blaring, red lights flashed everywhere. Vex was holding onto his console with both hands to stop from falling. "Commander!" Vex screamed over the noise. "The dimensional walls are collapsing. The energy from the human ship is reacting with the void. The whole sector is going to implode." Commander Kale looked at the main screen. The Aegis was glowing brighter than a star. It was pulling too much energy from the broken space. If they didn't stop it, the null shard would expand and swallow 10 nearby solar systems. Billions of lives would be lost. "We have no choice," Kale said. His face was grim. "We cannot let this continue. Target the Aegis with the main cannon. Destroy them before the sector explodes." "But the main cannon will take 10 minutes to charge," Vex cried. "By then, it will be too late." "Do it anyway," Kale yelled. Just then, the communication screen lit up. It was the Aegis. The face of Captain Roy appeared. He looked as calm as a man sitting on a park bench. He was holding his coffee mug again. "Hey, guys," Roy said. "We noticed you are powering up your big gun. You really don't want to do that." Kale was furious. "You have doomed us all." He shouted at the screen. "Your ship is tearing reality apart. We have to destroy you to save the galaxy." Roy took a sip of coffee. "Yeah, about that. We didn't mean to make the space break. We came in a little too fast, and the engine ripped the fabric a bit. It happens." Kale could not believe his ears. "Rip the fabric? You cannot just patch a hole in the universe." "Sure you can," Roy said casually. "Look, we are going to fix it. But if you shoot that big gun at us, the explosion will definitely kill everyone. So, just turn it off." And turn off your gravity wells, too. We need some space to work. The officers in the command center looked at each other. They were terrified. Turn off their defenses. Trust the humans who were destroying the sector. Captain, Mia's voice came over the speaker. The entropy nail is ready. We can fire it in 60 seconds. Great, Roy said. He looked back at Kale. You have 60 seconds. Turn off the gravity wells, or we leave, and you guys can enjoy the black hole. Kale hesitated. He looked at the shaking walls of his station. He looked at the terror in his crew's eyes. He looked at the human captain, who was completely relaxed. Kale realized he had no other hope. The aliens had no idea how to fix a broken reality. The humans seemed to think it was just a repair job. Do it, Kale whispered. Turn off the gravity wells. Stop the charging sequence. Vex looked at him in shock. Sir, are you sure? Do it. Kale roared. Vex typed the commands. The heavy hum of the station's engines died down. The gravity wells powered down. The station drifted quietly. Thank you, Roy said. Now, stand back. This is going to be bright. On the Aegis, Roy turned to Ace. Fire the nail, Ace. You got it, Captain, Ace said, grinning. He pulled a big red lever on the console. The bottom of the Aegis opened up. A long, thick metal spike dropped out. It looked simple, like a giant railroad spike. But inside it was a massive nuclear engine powered by the strange energy of the null shard. It was called the entropy nail. It worked by forcing reality to make sense, whether it wanted to or not. The spike shot towards the center of the swirling void. It moved faster than sound. As it flew, it began to spin. It glowed with a white light that was so bright it hurt to look at. Brace for impact. Jay yelled from the engine room. The entropy nail hit the center of the distortion. There was no explosion of fire. There was no loud bang. Instead, there was a sudden, complete silence. It was as if someone had pressed the mute button on the universe. A wave of white light expanded from the spike. It passed through the Aegis, passed through the hegemony station, and moved outwards. When the light hit the station, the shaking stopped. The alarms cut off. Objects that were floating fell gently to the floor. The twisted stars outside snapped back to their normal positions. Vex looked at his sensors. He blinked. The radiation is gone. The spatial distortion is 0. The physics readings are normal. On the screen, the null shard was disappearing. The dark, scary clouds were fading away like mist in the morning sun. The forbidden zone was turning into normal, empty space. The stars were shining clearly. Captain Roy appeared on the screen again. He was fixing his collar. Well, Roy said. That seems to have worked. The hole is patched. You guys should be good now. Kale sat down in his chair. He felt weak. His legs were shaking. He looked at the screen. The humans had just done the impossible. They had taken a broken piece of the galaxy and hammered it back together with a nuclear spike. You fixed it, Kale stammered. You fixed the forbidden zone. Yeah, Roy said. It wasn't too hard. Just needed a big hammer. Anyway, we have to go. We have a delivery to make on the other side of the galaxy. Mia's voice came over the channel. Captain, the engines are fully charged. We can jump to light speed whenever you want. Excellent, Roy said. He nodded to Kale. You're welcome, by the way. Try to be nicer to the next humans you see. Wait, Kale said. Who are you really? Roy smiled. We're just humans. Have a nice day. The screen went black. Outside, the Aegis turned slowly. The engines flared with a beautiful blue light. Then, with a flash, the ship was gone. It jumped into hyperspace, leaving the station alone in the quiet, normal space. The station was silent. The crew members were looking at the screens, trying to understand what had just happened. The most dangerous place in the galaxy was now a peaceful parking lot. And the monsters who had fixed it were just a group of messy, chaotic humans who drank too much coffee. Kale looked at the empty spot where the ship had been. He realized that everything he knew about the universe was wrong. Humans were not weak. They were not primitive. They were the only species crazy enough to survive the impossible and fix it with a wrench and a bomb. The silence that followed the departure of the Aegis was the loudest sound Commander Kale had ever heard. In the command center, the hum of the computers seemed to roar in the stillness. For a long time, no one moved. No one spoke. They were all staring at the large main screen. The screen showed a view of deep space. But it was different now. The swirling, dark clouds of the null shard were gone. The terrifying red radiation spikes were flat at zero. The gravity readings were normal. Where there had once been a forbidden zone that tore ships apart, there was now just empty, peaceful starlight. Vex was the first to move. He leaned over his console, typing furiously. His hands were shaking so badly that he hit the wrong keys several times. He took a deep breath and looked at the final report. Sir, Vex whispered. I have the data. Kale sat in his chair, feeling very old and very tired. Tell me. The dimensional rift is closed, Vex said, his voice full of wonder. The entropy nail worked. It forced the space to stabilize. The forbidden zone is gone. The space is just normal space now. Kale looked out the window. He saw stars that had not been visible for 10,000 years. They did it, he said softly. They fixed it with a giant spike and a nuclear explosion. They didn't just fix it, Vex added. They terraformed it. The energy residue is clean. We could build a space station right here tomorrow. The door to the command center opened. A group of tall, official-looking aliens walked in. They were the High Council, the rulers of the hegemony. They usually wore long robes of gold and silver, and they always looked proud and powerful. Today, they looked scared. The leader of the council, a tall alien named Zor, walked up to Kale. Show us the data, Zor commanded. Vex transferred the video logs and the sensor readings to Zor's personal tablet. Zor watched the recording of the Aegis firing the spike. He watched the ship absorb the gravity beam. He watched the engineer, Jay, dodge plasma shots as if he were dancing. Zor watched the video 3 times. His face turned a pale shade of blue. What are these creatures? Zor asked, his voice trembling. The report says they are humans from the planet Earth. Yes, High One, Kale said. That is what they called themselves. They do not respect the laws of physics, Zor said. They do not respect authority. They survive in a vacuum without proper shields. They eat radiation. And they treat the destruction of reality like a plumbing problem. Kale stood up. Sir, we thought they were primitive. We were wrong. They are dangerous. But they are not monsters. They saved the sector. Zor looked at Kale. That is what makes them dangerous. A monster kills you. A creature that saves you, when you try to kill it, is something you cannot understand. The High Council members whispered to each other. They looked at the empty spot where the human ship had gone. They realized that fighting these humans would be a mistake. If you attacked a human, they might not fight back. They might just accidentally tear a hole in the universe while trying to fix their breakfast. Update the Galactic database, Zor ordered. Earth is no longer classified as a primitive garden world. What shall we classify it as? High One Vex asked. Zor looked at the screen. Classify it as a reality anomaly. Issue a galactic warning. All hegemony ships are forbidden from entering human space. Not for our safety, but for our sanity. Do not disturb them. If you see a human ship, run away. Meanwhile, far away from the station, the Aegis was traveling through hyperspace. The stars outside the windows were streaks of blue light. The ship was quiet again, but it was a happy quiet. In the bridge, the crew was relaxing. The crisis was over. The engines were humming a happy song. Ace was tapping his fingers on the control panel, keeping a beat to a song in his head. Zone cleared, Mia said. She was filing the report. We are officially in safe territory. Jay walked onto the bridge. He had taken off his dirty coveralls and was now wearing a t-shirt and jeans. He was holding a mug of tea. Engine is purring like a cat, he said. That extra energy from the null shard really cleaned out the pipes. We haven't run this smooth in 10 years. Roy smiled. He was still in his chair, but he had put his feet up on the console. Good job, everyone. I think we scared them pretty good. I think we confused them mostly, Mia laughed. Did you see the look on that commander's face when we told him to turn off his gravity wells? Roy chuckled. They won't bother us for a while. Captain Roy stood up and walked over to the navigation console. He typed in a quick command. What are you doing? Captain Ace asked, turning the ship slightly to avoid a small asteroid. Just leaving a tip, Roy said. On the back of the Aegis, a small door opened. A small metal buoy floated out. It was a simple box with a solar panel and a radio transmitter. As the Aegis flew away faster than light, the buoy stayed behind. It turned on and began to broadcast a message into the void. The message was simple text, repeating over and over in all known galactic languages. It said, "You're welcome. The humans." Back on the bridge, Roy sat back down. Okay, let's go home. Or at least, let's go somewhere with better food. Where to next? Ace asked, spinning the controls. Anywhere but here, Roy said. Engage drive. The Aegis leaped forward, disappearing into the vast ocean of stars. In the hegemony station, the sensors picked up the message from the buoy. Kale read the words, "You're welcome." He looked at Zor. Zor nodded slowly. We must accept this, Zor said. The galaxy has changed today. We used to think we were the masters of reality. Now we know we are just living in the human's backyard. Be careful, Kale. Be very careful. Kale watched the stars. He thought about the crazy humans who drank coffee while fixing the universe. He realized that the galaxy was a much bigger, and much stranger, place than he had ever imagined. The reality they knew was safe no longer. It was a reality where humans existed. And anything was possible when humans were around. The station stayed silent, floating in the space that used to be forbidden. They watched the stars, wondering where the humans would go next, and what impossible things they would do when they got there.